Let's go to the next one. Um, uh, let's check out. Um, mm, mm, mm. So after that, obviously, let's check out. Let's check out classic WoW facts that you probably didn't know. I'll check out. Let's do the test of if I actually knew that. Like I'm actually curious to see that.
World of Warcraft has always been a game full of secrets and hidden mysteries, especially in the earlier days of vanilla. So I thought, you know what, let's take a look at some of the lesser known facts and secrets from the earliest days of WoW that you might not have known. Some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about will be more known than others, and for the sake of ease, Vanilla and the 2019 Classic re-release will be banded together, meaning that some of the video could still apply to the classic game we know today, and other parts will be in relation to the Vanilla period. So
Let me just check one thing real quick. Mm, uh,
strap in and grab
okay.
yourself a snack, as we're about to scratch the surface of the lesser known side of Classic WoW. Let's start it off with one that still applies to the classic version today. If I was to ask you what the longest corpse run in the game through normal means would be, you'd probably thinking along the
Okay, this I will never know, so I'm kind of
lines
curious.
of at the bottom of Tanarus, in the Dark Whisper Gorge of Winterspring, or dying in the Stormwind Tram area towards Ironforge as a Horde player, for example. But the longest corpse run in the game through normal means is actually if you fall off the cliff at Bloodvenom Post in Felwood. You would appear at the closest graveyard in Darkshore, and although that graveyard is pretty close to your corpse, the only way to reach your corpse would be to run across Ashenvale and back up through Felwood, which will roughly take you about 20 minutes.
20 minutes of like walking as a ghost, huh? Like so basically like it was basically glitched, like it was not intended to it was kind of like basically an abuse that you can do to just like waste time. But you can see how fanatic people are about well when they discover that like you can just like waste yourself like 20 minutes by jumping from a fucking cliff.
But now let's look at something a little faster. The fastest Ragnaros kill in Vanilla before the Burning Crusade was by a guild called the Silver Horde, who took 1 warrior, 1 paladin, 1 priest, 1 druid, 3 warlocks and 33 mages into Molten Core and managed.
Yeah, back in the day, like class equality didn't existed. It was mages were the best. Now with actually like the numbers and basically like the meta scientists, like the people, the hardcore people that actually like, we got mathematicians that actually like tell us which class in classic is best. Like it's actually warrior if I remember correctly. At least that's what I saw. But like, yeah, okay. So how
Managed to
long?
defeat Ragnaros in as little as 1 minute and 16 seconds,
Oh
which is
yeah,
honestly quite impressive for its time. At this
yeah. Like a normal run will be like 10 to 15 minutes, something like that.
rate, you could down Ragnaros 15 times before doing the entire Blood Venom Falls death run and still have an entire minute to spare. Now, while we're on the topic of Molten Core, during the earlier patches of Vanilla, due to a bug, Tier 1 and Tier 2 both used to drop from various bosses inside Molten Core. It was swiftly hotfixed, and a majority of Tier 2 was taken away from the loot tables of Molten Core, and this is largely why you could always obtain Tier 2 legs from Ragnaros, because although they had realised the bug was causing both tier sets to drop even before Blackwing Lair was released, Blizzard at this time had a fascination with Tier 2 dropping from bosses that were either more difficult or more epic to kill. Ragnaros for the Tier 2 legs, Onyxia for the Tier 2 helm, and the rest of the Tier 2 set that was reintroduced back into the game during the Blackwing Lair patch.
Yeah, and this was cool actually when it comes to game design because like you get like something you get really rewarded to come back to the raids, and you get like kind of like this kind of glimpse of the next raid that you're going to, because you get items basically like from this raid. So it kind of like hooks you in, like it makes you make motivates you to to keep on going, you know, because after that, like, you start a new raid and you already like have a piece from the raid because you finished the one before, you know.
Did you know if you kill and skin a sheep, you sometimes can actually get wool cloth? Now, if I was to ask you
I
what
didn't
the
knew that.
rarest mount ever within World of Warcraft was, what would you say it is? If you said the
Okay, if it's like the fucking like same argument of like the one-offs, like if it's like the once in a lifetime mounts that they'll talk about, it's not really interesting. But like the rarest mounts, actually, when it comes to like drops that actually anyone could have, and not like because of its glitch or like a story, like I'm actually
the
curious.
fluorescent green Mechanistrider, you'd actually be right. Only one person in the history of the
Yeah, so
game
it's
has
not that
officially
interesting.
had this mount, and that player was a player called Nosh from the EU realm of Frostmane. The mount was unavailable to obtain within the game, however Nosh supposedly had issues with his original Mechanistrider and had deleted it, which when being helped out from a game master at the time to recover and fix his mount, was mistakenly given the fluorescent green Mechanistrider. Nosh, however, kept playing World of Warcraft throughout many expansions before sadly trying to sell his account during Warlords of Draenor. Knowing that he had a one-of-a-kind mount, had tried listing it on a well-known cheating site, and the bidding for his account was rumoured to have exceeded the price of $15,000. But of course, with having such a unique item and being extremely well known, Blizzard got wind of this.
Who the fuck even has $150,000 to begin with? Like, and who the fuck will do that to for a game, especially back in the day? Like, I never understood this. And I'm just like, you could buy like yourself, like basically, like boost when it comes to boosting services, you could buy like yourself for like $2,000, like the premium WoW account that you would want, right? Like through boosting or like through buying. So I don't know.
And rightfully stripped the mount from his account, which now means that the fluorescent green Mechanistrider is an extinct mount. Now, I do quickly want to touch on the point that it's relatively unknown exactly when Nosh had received the mount, whether it was actually in vanilla or in the early stages of the Burning Crusade, but I still wanted to include this in the video because it's such a unique story. The fluorescent green Mechanistrider did make a comeback, however, during Phase 2 of Season of Discovery, as it had a small drop chance from the last boss in Gnomeregan. Taurens are so fat. From the
Wait.
last boss in Gnomeregan. However, during Phase 2 of Season of Discovery, as it had a small drop chance from the last boss
Oh,
in Gnomeregan.
so this is
Taurens
actually
are so
interesting.
fat, big boned, that they are the only race unable to fit through this window next to the high elf that grants the entrance to Molten Core. While we're talking
Okay.
about Tauren, did you know that Tauren is an anagram for nature?
Oh yeah, I have seen this I fucking like heard this fact like 10 years ago. Yeah, nature, Torin. That's actually yeah,
Now, let's
that's
talk
actually
about a
really
certain
cool.
ability in the game.
That's really poetic and beautiful, I think. Like,
The mage spell called Blink. This appears to have a pretty simple icon of a face with a glistening eye. This may just be me, but I for the longest time had no clue this was actually an icon of a dwarf. Most probably because icons are so
oh yeah. Yeah, the icon thing, like there's a lot of like icons in WoW that like you just like never like for me like there was like it was the same with Dota. Like, where like some icons, it took me like 5 years to fucking understand what the fuck is the icon about. So like, I didn't even notice that like it was like a fucking fake. I guess like I didn't notice, but like there's a lot of icons where it's like I wasn't sure like on stream. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like,
small, sometimes they are kinda hard to tell what's going on. To this day, I'd probably still get half of them wrong. But you might be thinking, hang on, why has a mage spell got a dwarf as an icon? Well, if we crank back time all the way to the WoW beta,
oh yeah, because dwarfs cannot be fucking mages. Oh, an interesting, like, that's actually an interesting, like, notice. Yeah, back in the day, they couldn't. They cannot, they still cannot, I think.
dwarf mages were initially going to be a thing. Even the original WoW game manual stated that dwarf mage was a playable race and class combo. So what happened? Why didn't it end up being released as a playable combo? Rumour had it that Blizzard thought it would skew the balance in favour of the Alliance for having too many different race and class combos, so they removed the ability for dwarf mages to be a thing. Yeah, believe it or not, they actually did try to balance some parts of vanilla. Now while we're
Yeah, it's just like they just didn't knew like how fucking like successful it will be. So balance like when it launched, like Warcraft was successful, so balancing was already I think. Well, at the same time, uh, still like it was like a new genre of like video games that like balancing, let's say for like Lineage 2, right, or Guild Wars, it existed, but like not to this fucking scale, right?
around this time period of vanilla, you're probably well aware of people dying within duels to various damage over time effects, spell reflex, and just warlocks in general. But did you know that very early on, if you were to duel another player, there would be no countdown timer and the duel would start instantly? This quite obviously gave the massively unfair advantage to the person that was accepting the duel, and it wasn't until patch 1.2 in vanilla where the 3-second countdown rule was introduced into the game.
I killed 2 dwarfs in the morning. I killed 2 dwarfs at night. I killed 2 dwarfs in the afternoon, and then I feel alright. I killed 2 dwarfs in time of peace and 2 in time of war. I killed 2 dwarfs before I killed 2 dwarfs, and then I killed 2 more.
That
Damn.
was a troll joke. That was removed in the later parts of vanilla going into early TBC, and it was a reference to a song called Smoke 2 Joints. Now, it's pretty unclear on a
That's actually grim and dark as fuck, and it was like because of like two joints. So basically, it's like the reference, like you replace like dwarf by joints. I kill 2 joints in the morning. I kill 2 joints,
solid reason why it
or I
was
smoke two
removed.
joints.
Some say it was because it was drug related and offended people even way back then for some reason. This joke,
wouldn't
however,
even
did
know.
not feature in the classic WoW 2019 re-release despite there supposedly being no changes, though this could be because the server ran on the end patch and it could well have been taken out just before the end patch of vanilla. If you're a fan of Warcraft 3 and saw the Arthur's Betrayal cinematic, you can lower the music volume in game and max out the ambience volume to hear the sounds of the cinematic at the entrance of Undercity. You will hear the bells as you enter, followed by the cheers from the crowd, with rose petals scattered all around, blood within the throne room from the crown falling to the floor, and also the speech from the cinematic between Arthas and his father, the king. Let's give it a little listen.
Oh, meaning that like if you actually fucking like lower like every sound, you can hear the Warcraft cinematic. This is actually really cool. This is actually really fucking sick.
Another Easter egg that was put into WoW during vanilla was the Children of Goldshire, who spawn at around 7 AM server time before running all the way up to Stormwind and back down to the house just above Goldshire. If you go inside the house around this time, you will find the children standing in a pentagram format with eerie music, banshee cries, ghoul noises, and the voice of Cthulhu saying,
You will die.
Now, you probably already
Yeah, and back in the day, like that's the thing. Like now we're used to like mega horror and like fucking like really really dark things, but like this is like you play the game. It's not that dark technically, and then you get into these moments, and it's really fucking like it takes you off guard. That's I'd say, you
know
know.
what female trolls
It's the same. Like there's like some things about Karazhan that like are really fucking grim as
used to
well.
look like in the alpha version of the game. But here's a reminder. Yep, that is absolutely terrifying. This is probably more scary than those Children of Goldshire. A completely useless fact to know is that all Night Elf guards inside Darnassus are female. You will find many male NPCs, but none of those will be guards. This also applies to a few other Night Elf settlements around the world, including Astronar in Ashenvale. Another quick fact to know, but this time could be considered useful, is that there are no engineering trainers in Thunderbluff or any other town inside Mulgore. But there is an engineering trainer by the name of Twiswick Sprocketgrind, who hides inside a mine at a distant spot in the northeast of Mulgore, which unsurprisingly not many people know about. The very
Yeah, how the fuck would you know back in the day?
first zones that were designed and created was Elwyn Forest and Westfall, which were created way back
And then why would you even need to know after that?
in the creation of the base game in 2001. The contrast to this and one of the last zones ever created in vanilla was Silithus. If we
Oh, this is interesting. So so this is like
contrast to
wait.
which were created way back
So Elwyn Forest and Westfall were like first zones created, and Silithus was last. So this is interesting. You get to see like the comparison, like how it like became like how during development. Game development, the actual artists and like like all the Blizzard team actually improved within their like own artistry, within like their own like art of like making video games. So this is actually really cool.
in the creation of the base game in 2001. The contrast to this and one of the last zones ever created in vanilla was Silithus. If we take a look at the original WoW cinematic and have a look at the map, you will see many differences in zones, including Silithus, which is missing because it's yet to be created, and when the WoW cinematic was made, it was based on an alpha version of WoW where Silithus was not yet in. When Silithus was created and the game was released, however, the zone was a shell. It had no content and no mobs. All of the content, the mobs, and the quests were added in later patches of vanilla. Now, there is an absolute ton of secrets, facts, and mysteries from vanilla or classic WoW, and this is only just scratching the surface. If you want to see a follow-up video with even more, I could turn it into a mini-series. Just let me know below if this is interesting and it's something you want to see more of. Also, I'll probably do a mini-series of the many things within vanilla that was never officially released, that got scrapped from the game's alpha, meaning it never saw the light of day. But let me know.
Okay, so this is actually like really interesting. There's like a second one. I will add it to my like subscribe to these. Thank you these for like the fucking video. This was actually like cool facts. I actually knew most of them. So about like the new like I only knew the Torn fact. That's it. But this is it, yeah. Like this actually like here you go. Okay, so yeah, this was classic WoW facts. You didn't know actually I didn't knew most of them. This was cool.